I want to talk to you about a project that I'm involved in the United Kingdom. It's in Scotland and it's in Glasgow, my hometown. It's the Glasgow Schools Project. And I want to just take you on the journey with me to how we got to teaching children in schools in Scotland. When I first was involved with Buteyko and I had decided I wanted to study and see how this method worked, I went along to the local paediatric hospital, York Hill Hospital, and I spoke there with several consultants. And I discussed what my intention was. And they advised me that I shouldn't work with children because it was very difficult. Because not only did you have to get the children to comply, you had to get the parents to comply. So rather than just an adult on a clinical study signing a consent form, you had to have parental consent, and they then had to ensure that the children would participate. I argued a bit at that point because I felt that Buteyko is something that empowers children or anybody to look after their own health. To have children an opportunity to reduce medication and eventually maybe not have to take any at all seemed to me a wonderful opportunity and a way forward for one of the sickest cities in Europe. However, the consultant had said that there were several constraints within a clinical study, and one of them was what about adverse reactions? And again, my experience with Buteyko was that there were no adverse reactions. The side effect was that people got better. And we discussed this quite heatedly. And in adverse reactions in clinical trials, there can be fatalities. And the consultants admitted to me that they expected fatalities in some instances. And to me, this was ethically and morally wrong. I left quite disheartened, but still full of enthusiasm to carry on and do a study. But I would do the study with adults, which did start and completed in 2003. Presented the research results in several conferences, the British Thoracic Society, the World Asthma Conference, the General Practice Interest in Asthma Group, and several other conferences in other countries throughout the world. I was still desperate to get into work with children because 2 years before that, there was a high media coverage of a young girl who died of a Flixotide overdose. And there was much discussion and debate because when the little girl died, 3 weeks later, her brother was rushed into hospital. And it was only when they were examining him that they realised that he was cortisol deficient. And this had come about because of the massive doses of the drug Flixotide that had been given. And I can mention these names because this has been heavily documented in the media in Glasgow and throughout Scotland. There was a documentary by the BBC carried out where the gentleman who's in the regulatory body for medications had said the amount of Flixotide that Asthma-free had was enough to be given to a horse. It would have killed a horse, were his words. This child was 4.5 on a medication that is licensed for adults and should not really be given unless under directions to children under 12. However, Emma's mum could talk about how she got the medication. It was advised by the consultant paediatrician at York Hill. Our GP wrote the prescription. The pharmacist contacted York Hill before he would dispense it and explained to Emma's mum that this was a very strong medication. But still she was continued on it and her little life was taken away from her. Cameron would say to his mother and his father, "Mummy, Daddy, why are you giving me the medication that killed my wee sister?" And he had to continue on prednisolone and on Flixotide until his body was producing cortisol again, because without cortisol, we die, we cannot survive without it. And because of that story in the media coverage, there was a lawyer who came along to work with me and with his little boy. And Chris didn't really have asthma as such, but he had panic attacks. And having done the course, he just went from strength to strength. And his dad knew the Frame family. And I learned a lot about what had happened with Emma from the Frames and from this lawyer. And it made me angry. And I decided then that I would work with children. And every opportunity that I could, if I had contacts with schools, with teachers, I would always drop in the Buteyko card, the little bits of information. Then a footballer and physical education teacher came to do the course. And Michael, young man, loved football, but was spending more and more time on the bench and less time in the football field. So he embraced Buteyko wholeheartedly and had fantastic results and was playing full 90 minutes of football. His life sort of turned about. But he called me up in a bit of a dilemma and asked to meet with me. And he said, "You know, I have real issues now with my job." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, what's wrong?" I said, "Well, all of these children, high percentage of these children that come to my class have got asthma, exercise-induced asthma. and I have to let them take inhalers. And I know what I experienced with my Ventolin inhalers, and I know what these kids are experiencing. And everything that we discussed in the course, these children take their inhaler, they go out, they're doing physical activity, they're in a high adrenaline overdrive, and then we expect them to sit in a class for 55 minutes and participate in an educational session. It's impossible. So from that, we met with the head teacher at St Maurice's and we put together a protocol, and it was agreed that we would teach children. From the school, Michael had come up with about 120. The actual figure over the 3 years is actually nearer 240 in that school that have been taught. And these kids came in, we had classes of 50 and 60 children. It was phenomenal to watch. Yes, they were boisterous at times. Yes, they were honest when Claire Smith, a reporter, a journalist, interviewed them. And they said, yeah, we came here to out of class. And some of them said, yeah, it was just a skive. But the ones that really embraced it said it was good. And yes, you will get children will be children will be children. Of course, you'll get the ones that want to pull the fast one on you, but that's okay. What they did see were their peers improving and getting better health. From that school, there were several children that did exceptionally well, but one in particular stands out, and she was swimming, a trainee swimmer. And Michelle could not swim in chlorinated pools. Chlorine was one of her major triggers. So it was a real problem with her because she was a competitive swimmer. And most of the pools are chlorinated. 3 weeks after having participated in Buteyko, and I did work with Michelle and her coach and her parents, 3 weeks post the Buteyko course, she competed in an event and had 5 personal best timings, something she hadn't done before. And she's continued to improve ever since. Last year, not only was she competing in swimming, she had started dancing, she was in a pantomime, and she was in a musical. So this girl, whose life was all about swimming, has suddenly found that she's got more energy, and with her swimming improving, her whole all-round life has improved. She also does gymnastics, which she's exceptionally good at as well. Then another lady came along to participate in the course, and she taught in another school in Clydebank, and she was also the head teacher for health promotion, health education. Anne-Marie came along for her allergies, and she had fantastic results, as most people do. And she was quite interesting because she's a very Christian lady. She works in a very Catholic school, and she supports her faith and supports the children, and is a lovely, genteel lady. And she was in desperation with her allergies because she goes out to Africa and does a lot of work in Olaleni. They raise funds for Olaleni, and every second year the school goes out and they have an exchange with Olaleni. And Anne-Marie was just in a dreadful state with her allergies when she came back from Olaleni, and she said a prayer to St Teresa, flung open the yellow pages, and it opened at my name. She will tell you that's what happened. And she came along, and it really was a haphazard course because there was a problem in my office and we had to relocate, and I had to apologise to everybody for doing that. And she said at one point, she thought, I'm almost home now rather than go to this other venue. But she thought, well, I'll just go in anyway. And not only did she do well, but there was one particular lady who's referred to me by a consultant from a local hospital who was desperately sick. And Anne-Marie witnessed what she classed almost like a miraculous recovery, which really is the phenomenon of the human body repairing itself. And she thought about the children in the area where she was a teacher. And not many people know of Clydebank, but it was the capital of Scottish shipbuilding. It's where our boatyards were, and spreading from Clydebank right up into Glasgow. John Brown's was a very famous shipyard, which was right in the front of Clydebank. It was also bombed in the Second World War, so a lot of the properties were lost. And Singer sewing machines was one of the major industries in that area, and they've all gone now. So you don't only have socio-economic problems and poverty, you've got high health problems. You've got lots and lots of issues about misuse of various different substances, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, unemployment, and it's a high priority area. So a lot of these children actually have to go to school to have a meal. So they really do live in quite a poor area. To come privately to learn about Buteyko for their asthma would have been impossible. Some of them barely have money to survive from week to week. So however, again, we went along to the head teacher and we introduced a protocol. And as the same in St Maurice's, if I'm teaching children, I want to teach teachers also, because I'm not in the school all the time, and teachers have to be aware of the project. They have to be aware how they can support the children, or at least somebody there to support their children, because they're not really going to get that support at home. We're speaking about children taking responsibility for their own health from a young age. We had fantastic results again, as a standard, as Professor Buteyko would say, so much so that Anne-Marie decided that the school, she negotiated with the children, and they wanted to put the school forward for an award, a health promotion award. And they came up with the phrase themselves that they were breathing themselves free of asthma. St Columba's High School, Clydebank, breathing themselves free of asthma. So the application was put in, they came along, I had to go along, I had to be interviewed, I had to teach the children. But not only that, some of the children were boisterous. Some of them in the school didn't engage, some of them were in exclusion, some of them played truant. Some of them had attention deficit. So it wasn't just asthma that took on board. We're speaking about an area that had lots of multiple problems. But these children all attended the Buteyko classes. And all of a sudden, that nose clearing exercise really works. You know, I haven't had to take Ventolin. I actually sat through my French class. And the teachers could back that up by saying that particular disruptive pupils had increased attention span, increased concentration, and also managed to sit in the class for the full 55 minutes. One particular young boy had very disruptive behaviour. His mother was up and down to the school, but he was a likeable young rogue. However, Dean was misbehaving one day, and I says, "Hey mate, if you want to do that, you come up here and you take the class." And he went, "Okay." And he repeated verbatim what he'd been taught. The problem was that Dean's an exceptionally bright child, but had been labelled as disruptive from a young age. Once you cue into a child's abilities, they just blossom. He could take that whole class, and the BBC came along for their news bulletin to do a short documentary on what we were doing at St Columba's, and Dean was actually witnessed on live television doing the exercise set, the Buteyko Institute Method exercise set, along supported by Alicia, who's another very bright child. So everything went to place. Angela Sim came out, interviewed everybody, observed the children, and was quite fascinated by everything. But she'd done her homework. Her daughter was a GP, her son-in-law was a ear, nose and throat surgeon, and she came back to speak about whether the school was getting the award or what. And she'd had a big debate with her daughter and her son-in-law, but then she remembered something that I'd said, that this was health education, not clinical. I wasn't changing anything clinical, I was teaching children about their health, which is what the Buteyko Institute Method is. With that, she went back to the authority, and St Columba's got the highest award for being an innovative practice in health education, health promotion. From that, we met again with Angela, and I was advising that we should have a conference. The plan was to have a conference in the Scottish Exhibition Centre, but Angela wanted to have one locally at the Beardmore Hotel in Clydebank, which we did in March of this year, 2008. And it was fully attended by politicians, head teachers, training officers, local authority representatives, representatives from all the schools in the area. And not only did we have St Columba's, but they have a cluster group where we had St Joseph's and St Eunan's also involved in the school. So they came down, the young kids presented as well. They also had to do an assignment. So from that assignment was really that I broke it down into questions, and they all took a question and got the answer for it, and they presented that in the Beardmore Hotel. We had a bit more time before we had the conference in the National Exhibition Centre, because there with the children they had all an assignment that the head teacher had picked up. The younger ones hand wrote out their projects, and their handwritten pieces of paper, they stood up with a microphone in front of an audience of 200 and repeated what they'd written, what their experience was with Buteyko, who Professor Buteyko was, what the bore effect was, what the air was made up of, what an exercise set was, and we're speaking about children from 5 up to 17. The senior children all presented in PowerPoint, and they did it very articulately as well. I went back to thinking about what I had said with the consultant in York Hill. And I'd said to him at that when I was leaving, you know, one day I'll have a group of kids and they'll be presenting Buteyko's work somewhere. And on the 24th of April 2008, those children did that in the Scottish Exhibition and Conference Centre, where we had 180 children presenting Professor Buteyko's work and demonstrating his exercises that reverse the symptoms of asthma, attention deficit, disruptive behaviour, panic attack, sleep apnea, snoring, insomnia, because these were the conditions that those children had. They also said they'd improved concentration, The attendance at school had improved by 33.3% compared with the previous year, and that they slept better, they had better concentration, better sports performance, better all-round lifestyles, just by attending an exercise class.